So I was doing some workshop a couple of months ago, and at the very, very end of this very long session, one of the panelists totally sucker punched me with a question, which was just, what advice would you give to yourself, as your younger self, your previous self, yourself earlier in your career? And I spent my time ruminating on it a little bit because I actually thought it was a phenomenal question. And the answer I think I gave was, I wish that I had realized that I didn't know everything. So that's very, very common. So please, no hubris. I wish that I had been more patient and forgiving with myself. And I wish that I'd been just that little bit more thoughtful about everything I ever did. And I don't know whether those are easy and cheap answers or not, but I very much, when I sat and answered the question, I thought, I really wish that every single piece of software I ever wrote, everything I ever shipped, I wish I'd have spent maybe 10% more time just being thoughtful about what I was doing and why I was doing it. And I mean that both on the low technical level, like of the lines of code I was writing, and I mean that on the very, very high level as like, why on earth are we doing this thing? So I guess the same question, and is it ESCO? Sorry, I don't know how.
Yep.
Cool. If I was to ask you that question, what would you say? What advice would you give you, like age 20?
Well, for myself, I would say that for university, don't even plan about finishing master studies, and you're not like writing any long articles like the master's thesis, so it will never be finished anyway. So just take some few courses that you find are interesting, and then just continue in the work life more fully.
Oh, so you wouldn't have gone to university at all?
I think like the bachelor studies, okay, those were very useful. And those I did also manage to finish, although there was like one compulsory course that I took like a couple of years after doing all the others. But I think for myself that would be like save many months of time.
If you don't mind me asking, why did you decide to do a master's?
Well, it's just like the automatic step after doing bachelor's. So, and education in Finland is free, so there's like the only cost is the time. So
only the most expensive thing we have.
Yes.
That's interesting. Joe, how about you?
It's interesting because I was going to say something different, and now that I'm like, fuck yeah, I'd have told myself not to bother with uni. In fact, it's what I tell everyone now. But the thing that I would say to myself is stop being so afraid to ask for help, and stop being afraid to ask questions in general. Because like my first ever job in tech, I was so petrified that I didn't know anything and that wasn't okay, that I wasted so much time. Not only did I waste my own time trying to do things that like could have been fixed in 5 minutes by the person sat next to me, but I wasted so much knowledge of those people that didn't then go into my head because I was afraid to ask them the questions.
It's a terrifying thing, isn't it? It's that fear of people seeing you as less, or because I remember that in myself as well. Like it almost felt like defeat, like to actually ask for help. Certainly when I was younger, which meant that I did a load of like really, really dumb stuff that I shouldn't have done. Like I'm fairly certain a lot of my early software that I wrote professionally for money was just rubbish because I tried to do it myself. I'm going to kind of extend the same question to people. Oh, the previous discussion is still going. Oh, it's okay. That's fine. I'm sure it was a wonderful discussion. We've got a comment here. I have no degree in computer science, but I would absolutely love one, but I do love uni. Huh. So there's an interesting question. Why would you? What do you think a degree in computer science would gift you with as a thing? I say as someone with a degree in computer science, So I'm curious.
I've said that because I mean I did like genetics and chemistry and biology, and then I did masters in like cognitive psychology, which was completely irrelevant.
See, I want your
And
degrees instead.
Yeah.
Like, they're way cooler.
It's like I'm actually like when I started doing the job as a developer, I've realized how much more that was important to understand the team dynamics in terms of, but that's not another thing. But like it's just the concept that I sometimes find myself missing on, that for others are basic. I think I could like having a very good basic knowledge is much more important to me than having like amazing detailed complex knowledge somewhere.
Can I
I
give
don't
So
know.
you feel like you always need to fill in the gaps in knowledge, like that your foundations. Because I don't have a degree and I'm trying to learn something, and also because I come from Eastern Europe, there's this weird pressure that everyone in Poland has a master's degree in something. It doesn't matter what it is, but everyone has to have a master's.
Can
Yeah.
I give you a
So
recommendation? There's a
Go on.
book specifically designed for this exact problem. So there's a guy
For
called
an Eastern European woman.
but Eastern European women who don't have degrees, because you somehow you're screwed up and you're now invalid as people, obviously.
Yeah.
Now, there's a guy called Rob Connery who's wonderful, and he wrote a book called The Imposter's Handbook, and
Yeah.
it's phenomenal. And I have a comp sci degree, and I still read it and still learned stuff because I don't remember my comp sci degree.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I was
legitimately.
trying to get over it for years, and that's the advice I would give to anyone else, that you don't need it, and especially in computer science, every person who has a computer science degree says, it was a waste of time. By the time I finished it, none of the knowledge I had was valid. But I find, because I don't work as a developer, this is something I would like to, I'm aiming for, but I've been in a very intro tech role for a while, and it's very difficult to learn on the job apart from sort of outside your domain because the environment's too busy. So I was supposed to have study time. I don't really get it, so I need to try to learn. And a lot of time, I don't know, people who have some knowledge some understanding that you kind of don't get unless you've been at uni, or it seems like you had some time to a relaxed pace be able to learn things. Perhaps that wasn't the experience, but it seems like if you have a full-time job and then you also need to learn, and you don't really understand things, you really need to compress it, and your brain fries. So, and there's always this, I don't know, especially if you're an Eastern European woman in a male-dominated in a department, there's always the the cocky kind of oh, do you know this, I'm just gonna throw a bunch of
It probably depends on teams,
abbreviated
because I'm
whatever
Polish,
things that I
but
don't even understand what
working
they
in
are.
London. But I work with our office in
Yeah.
Katowice. I don't feel that way, and they're mainly guys there.
Yeah.
One tester lady who's great.
I desperately want to shake you and say, stop giving yourself a hard time about not somehow excelling when your job is clearly not giving you the time to do any of that kind of transition. It is not your fault. That is so not your fault.
Yeah, but then it's my responsibility to kind of 100%. Be active in my own destiny in a way, and take care of my learning. It's just hard to have a full-time job and then also try to do things. But I was trying to learn, and sometimes you get a little bit of you don't get time for studying properly. So I'm kind of, luckily I've been quite good at figuring things out and Googling things, which is why I got the job in the first place. But sometimes it's just this is a wild concept. Why is it even there? So I just feel like I'm forever going to be paying for the fact that I never took time to sort of study at uni what I want to do. But I don't know, you always get a reassurance, but everyone seems to
squandered my degree.
Already know everything.
And I will I will admit to most of my own failings here abruptly and make myself seem awful. I almost dropped out every year. I thought I was too good for it in the first year because I could already program. I didn't bother going to lectures. I basically almost failed all my exams because I was bored and or drunk. And I blamed everyone but myself for approximately exactly 3 years. And there was nothing more sobering about just about scraping through my degree and then being like, you know what I really like? I really like learning. Like, it was like a horrible, and like I totally squandered it. And there was some
Yeah.
foundational stuff in there. And sometimes I think, oh, in my day job, maybe sometimes I half remember that one thing from that lecture in first year that I was too tired to pay attention in.
Mhm.
But I feel like
Yeah.
if you're worried about not going to university, the kind of learning you do now with intent when you want to learn, and I'm sure lots of people went to university and wanted to learn, unlike me being a slacker, but like the learning you do now when you really care about it is so much more valuable. Like, you're not at a disadvantage learning now than you were then. Like, maybe you are, I mean, it sounds a little bit hippie, but maybe you are at the right time to learn.
Yeah.
Maybe now is the right time.
I think it's, yeah, and because at least I know I want to do it and I find it interesting in it actually. But you know what? And I've got, you know, within my life, I've got no dependence or anything like that. I can literally do what I want. So my attention goes to what I want. It's just sort of during working hours, it's a little bit different. But I think it's just about the gaps, of like filling the gaps, because even when I was in school, I didn't really, so I wanted to use tech in a different way. Like, I was interested in my games and this and this and this, that. I wasn't interested in whatever my beautiful teacher
I mean, it was probably
was
pretty
telling
low,
me
quite
at IT classes. It was just like, but I loved logic at maths. Like, that was my favorite thing. So, you know, I played a lot of Tetris as well. So, you know, I can still, that allows me to move houses a lot of the time and like really put things in boxes. So you kind of never know what you're gonna get from when you're learning. But my problem now with not having a degree, or not daring to, you know, go spend so many years trying to obtain one, is all the job adverts for juniors seem to be graduates. There's always like, oh,
Someone
graduates only,
who is
graduates only.
not a
And there's
graduate,
like
just
one
to let you
company
know, and
advertises.
I didn't get my job a year ago. It's quite funny. Alice is here, who is from, I think, still Makers Bootcamp. So I was doing the bootcamp, but it doesn't really matter. More
Yeah.
important is like, I've applied for all the graduates
Yeah.
only uni, and we're only gonna speak to uni people and never to anyone else. And I had so many interviews with them
Did you
because
apply for them
it means
anyway?
nothing. People don't know how to write job specs. It's like the
Really?
same job specs somebody wrote 20 years ago, and they're just changing name from senior to junior, or React to Python.
Yeah.
I have hired hundreds of people, and I've never ever looked at a degree certificate, checked a degree certificate, or asked anyone a question that I think would come from their course. Never, ever.
I would say always apply,
Okay.
because
Cool.
you know, let them filter you out. Don't filter yourself out before you even get to the next process. Like, if they say no, that's fine. That's just a no. But if you've already said no to yourself, then you're never going to get that job.
Yeah. No, it's just there's so many, so it almost makes you, because the, you know, the job ads, hey, environment is so full of grads, it kind of makes you feel like, am I kidding myself here?
I don't know if you want to repeat
How
it.
can I ever apply?
Yeah, I was saying in the chat I wrote, you should always apply to jobs for which you have 50% of the requirements. And I think I've even seen a paper that said that basically, if you have less than 50%, it actually plays against you. But if you have more than 50% of requirements, like there's not a correlation between you having 50% to 80% and like how much better you do on the job. So if you have at least 50%, you are as qualified to apply as someone who has 80% in terms of like how many chances you have to kind of get the job. And like a lot of what makes a difference then is how you're going to do an interview and how they're going to like you and all this. So yeah, that's my...
Your advice is to apply to all the jobs.
You just apply to all the jobs.
Apply to all the jobs.
That's also great because when you apply to all the jobs, and when you apply to jobs you don't care, you have a lot less stress in the interview process, and you can just practice your interview skills without so much fear of failure. So
I took that advice like directly from Alice. So this is quite funny. And I actually used it to my advantage. Like one of the first offers that I got was from like half support, half development role. And because they were paying quite well, with the next interviews, I used it as a leverage, being like, I know you're offering this, but I got this offer. I mean, I'm not saying it's a support offer, but I do have an offer. So I was just abusing the system quite well.
Oh my God, I actually have another answer to my question. You totally just jogged my mind. When I was in my very first job, out of university, I remember working at this e-commerce startup as a system administrator / developer. Let's plant a red flag. We're going to plant a red flag around that job title. And we were doing this big project. This was like 2005. And then the CEO of the small company came and spoke to me, said, okay, well, we've got this really, really aggressive deadline. You're going to have to work all your weekends, but we'll pay you double. Right, we'll pay you double. And I can see Alice shaking her head right now because you know exactly where this is going, right? Like more or less. And I was working with an incredibly wonderful and talented man at the time who probably taught me everything I knew for my career development trajectory. And he said, David, don't do it. And I was just like, but I'm making like £1,000 a month, like double pay for all my weekends. He's just like, David, don't do it. Like, I'm not saying they're not going to pay you, but even if they do, it won't be worth it. And it took 2 months of weekends. We shipped the thing. They doubled down on semantics and paid me for 1 month of weekends worth of overtime, screwed me on the rest, and I quit. Never work overtime. Never make people work overtime, never suggest people work overtime, send everyone home at 5:30 aggressively, pull their power out of the walls on their computers. Never, 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 never let the goals of a company interfere with your sanity in your personal life. And I wish I'd have known that at 21. Like, I wish I hadn't been burnt really, really, really hard, because it was horrible and I felt used, I felt upset, and I felt like I could never trust people again in business, which is probably some good life advice. Never trust people in business. They're not worth it. I'll take all my red flags out of the ground. Does anyone in chat have any have an answer to that question? What would you tell your Joe's made a good point again. She wished she'd known how to negotiate a salary interview and after offer earlier, because God, someone should teach you that in university if there was a theoretical good class. I will step out now so people can join.
I mean, the first few jobs that I got working in the tech industry, the salary that I accepted is laughable by today's starter salaries. But I had no idea, A, what I was worth, and B, how to negotiate when they said, like, we're going to give you this tiny sum. I was like, oh, okay, thank you. I'll take that and go and work. And you know, now that I speak to so many people at CodeBar, and you know, they have the exact same thing, because a lot of companies will try and get away with paying you as little as they possibly can. And my advice is always, like, negotiate up at least 10% from what they originally offer you, unless you're perfectly happy with what it is that they're offering you. But the whole, like, oh, I've had this offer from X other company and they've offered me this much, so if you could meet that, then I would be happy to accept, is my sort of standard answer to jobs now, even if I haven't had any other offers. Just I've had the same offer and they've offered me this much extra. Always negotiate up.
So cool.
Like, they will try and get away with as little as they can most of the time. A lot of companies are always and not like that, but most of the time they will, they'll try and lowball you.
Juniors too, Agatha. It does work for juniors too, like with the first job. It really does.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm gonna have to start applying. And yeah, I've got a question about the chat. Do we have a limit
It
of
says
4
9 on
people or
top
9?
now.
Because it
Oh,
says for
okay.
5.
I
Oh,
thought
right,
it was
okay.
5, which is why I was
Yeah,
jumping
that's
out.
why I was. Yeah. Okay. No, I got confused because I'm thinking, oh my
No.
god, you know, I'm talking so much about my life problems.
It's
While
actually
someone
9
else
people,
has
so I'll
something to
turn back up
join.
again rather than absconding my responsibility.
I would pick up
Yeah.
the point that was made earlier again, just briefly, and say with regards to computer science degrees and having them versus not having them. Like, I don't have a computer science degree, and I always wished that I did, and I always felt like there was this secret knowledge that was acquired during computer science degrees that suddenly made you a developer, and that I would never be a developer because I never had the computer science degree. And it's taken me nearly 10 years to work out that that's completely bullshit, if you'll excuse my language.
Yeah. But to be fair, I feel like there's just this whole mystical dust sort of thing around the word developer. It's almost like everyone's trying to make it into something like you suddenly possess some magical powers or something. Like, you know, you have to pass some tests or something to really call yourself one. But then what does it even mean? Because every single person that I have met or worked with who's a developer does a completely different thing. So why is there this magical
It's because
role
everyone wants
that
to feel
everyone
special
really,
and
really
wants to feel
wants
like the
to
thing
like
they do is
create?
the most important thing, and it's all bullshit. Sorry, language.
Yeah, but it's like DBAs don't have these things. They're not like, oh, be a DBA. It's like nobody
Like
gives a shit about being a DBA.
100%.
You know?
Like,
Like everyone wants
and
to be a
maybe
developer.
there's some truth in here. Maybe it's not advice I give to myself. If you know how to write basic HTML, a little bit of JavaScript, and any programming language you can run on a server, you're a programmer. It's fine. Oh, and use source control. There we go. You can get a job. That's it. That's all the skills. That's like, and that's, you know what? That's
Yeah.
why boot camps are so successful now, because they embrace that as the actual reality of the gigging job. Like, it isn't,
Yeah.
oh my God, I want to tell you about big O notation and computational complexity of this algorithm. Like, cool, my degree made me know those words, but I probably didn't understand those things until 10 years into my career. But I probably didn't understand what those meant
I
until 10
think you
years into my
understand.
career. Like, that's the truth. And I'd shipped a boatload of software like before then. It's all that there is so much hubris about what makes people, you know, there is no such thing as a real programmer. Fuck the gatekeepers. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. Like, don't let it get you down. And interestingly, the reason that I linked that specific book before was it like the guy that wrote it is super lovely, really fascinating dude. He built a load of Microsoft's web stack in ASP.NET. He was like one of the core contributors to ASP.NET MVC, and he got to like 20 years in career and was like, oh, I've not got a degree. Surely that makes me useless. Never mind the millions of programmers using literally. And he felt so bad that he went and then studied all the stuff that he thought he would learn in a comp sci degree, but then he wrote a book about it. He's like, okay, so I don't know maths. I've never known maths, so I'm going to learn maths from first principles. And he wrote it all up. So it's a really, really great book for when you're in that mental space of like, all this stuff is allegedly important. And just don't let it get you down. Like, it really, like, I have worked in more programming languages than I remember. And I don't know half of the stuff in that book. Like, I read it and I forgot half of it again. Like, it's totally cool. Like, it doesn't, like, the biggest lesson that you can learn in programming is that approaches are better than knowledge. And that's like a really, really subtle thing. Learning an approach and a pattern and a way to solve a problem. Once you do that, you can Google the rest of it. Like, legitimately, you can Google the rest in any programming language, in any framework or runtime. All that stuff is just, I don't know. It's like saying you can't speak English because you don't know the dictionary. Like, it's that bizarre. Like, oh, you can't program because you've never learned all of those bits. Like, nah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I do sometimes feel like I can't speak English properly. Mainly because I live in Yorkshire, but also because, like, I'm inspired by people who are a lot more eloquent than I am, and sometimes I just feel like, Jesus Christ, why have I been here so many years and I haven't learned to speak proper?
Two new joiners. We got Darren and Deb.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you
I
both
just-
the same question. What would you tell yourselves? What would you tell your younger selves?
Advice I give my younger self. This is a tricky one. Like, it depends on what I want to. I'm going to say what I'm thinking on top of my head. What I want to optimize, so to speak.
It's very technical.
But if I say I want to optimize like some sort of outcome, then probably don't do a computer science degree. Like, contrary to what people think is important, because I think you can achieve so much more in a shorter amount of time. Like, if you want to go into like become a programmer in software development in general, I think that the only class in computer science that's like maybe semi-important is like the basics of knowing how quick your program runs and some basic data structure stuff. Like, not in great depth, but just like you know that there's trade-offs. Certain things are that you use will be faster than that. But apart from that,
I love that that's your example though, because like most people just use arrays for everything. Like the vast majority of software is just stuck in arrays. Like if the chat can name more than 10 other data structures between everybody in the chat, I'd be impressed.
Oh, I mean, I don't even mean like comprehensive thing. It'll be things like between an array and a set, where like a set is like such an underrated structure where you use it to dedupe things.
Do you write Java?
No.
No. It's interesting you say that, because like the set is a data structure that isn't in all programming languages either. And the reason I pick up on that is it's a very, very specific thing, right? And it makes people feel bad. Actually, it's probably not the thing you need to know.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just like, that's not even a lot of knowledge. It's just those little things maybe you need to know from the computer science degree to maybe make your program a bit quicker. And the maybe is very strong, because it doesn't necessarily mean your program is better because you know these things. Because I feel like software engineering solves completely different problems than just nerding out some algorithms from a book that you can understand. So I feel like arguably paying for 3 years, 4 years just to learn that, it's a bit of a waste of time, to be honest. So that's what I meant by optimizing.
That's like a mic drop moment.
Yeah. If I want to optimize the output of wanting to become a developer, I probably wouldn't do that. But then younger self didn't know that I want to actually become a developer for sure. So
amazing.
It's a way to get there, I suppose. But yeah.
Debbie, how about you? What would you answer that question with? If you could give your younger self some advice. You're definitely muted or miming. No. Can anyone else hear?
I can hear you now.
Yes, I actually think everyone cut out because I couldn't hear anyone say no either.
Oh, now I've lost you again.
Oh, we got you.
Yeah.
We've got like patches.
Is it just really quiet?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Do you want to maybe leave the video and then rejoin it and see if it's somehow, because computer software is hard, maybe it will, maybe it'll let you speak. Bated breath. I'm going to read a few of the things from the chat while Debbie tries to. Fingers crossed.
I'm intrigued to watch back on maybe the earlier recordings this time, just from overrunning so much in the last session.
Oh yeah, when I came here at 20 past, it was a heated discussion there. So, but I really wanted to be in this one, and I didn't realize the time. So
I left pretty much
because there wasn't anyone afterwards, right?
When that finished, so we overran by quite a lot.
So Debbie's crashed. So I'm going to read a couple of the comments that we've got out here.
Oh no, technologies.
I know. I'm sure Debbie will fight away. You can never trust
I
someone.
hate
tech.
computers. I say that sometimes. It's like,
Okay, so many people are talking about ready to work for the boot camp grad. It's so expensive, and I try to self-study, taking so much more time finding what I should be learning, though. And I think that's an interesting topic, really, isn't it? Like, what is the right thing to learn? And I can only imagine it's terrifying as someone that comes through a boot camp to try and work out where they're meant to be focusing.
to say that it depends it doesn't really help, because it really depends on which kind of job you're going to.
I wish that I could answer this with a more balanced technical recommendation, but the answer is JavaScript. Sorry. And that's not my primary working environment, nor the environment I prefer, but the answer is JavaScript.
I would agree with that.
So, but where would you, because that's the thing, because that's what I'm trying to learn now. But there's so many ways of sort of using and implementing. Every time you start learning, it turns out that there's like 500 different things that have been created, and actually everyone's kind of moving towards there. And we read so many blogs and so much advice, and then every person you speak to gives you something else. And also when you're in a boot camp, you probably have a mentor. And when you learn on your own, it's
the problem is JavaScript is kind of trash, right? Like JavaScript is trash and doesn't help people learn.
Give up now.
But actually, JavaScript's really good, and that's kind of the duality.
Yeah, I just wish I had, like, I could build something with it that would be meaningful, or like, and building alongside someone. So that I can be like, okay, so this is how you apply it. Okay, this is how you do it. Okay, why is this not working? Because with JavaScript, what I found that was the biggest mindfuck, excuse my French, recently, was the functions are objects and everything's an object and this, and like I kind of have a little bit of an understanding of what an object is, but it never behaved for me in the past the way it does in JavaScript.
The world's most accessible language, which makes it the best first language, but also full of subtle nuances that makes it the worst language to learn. And those two things both exist at the same time. And there's a truth there that can never be avoided. But you said something that I thought was really important. Then you said finding something to work on that you can like sink your teeth into with someone. So I can never finish things.
It's something meaningful.
I can't finish things on my own.
Maybe you need a coding buddy.
I haven't finished projects on GitHub. There's still one that I really wanted to finish, but I just like.
There's so many reasons for it though. Like victories on your own are hollow. They feel hollow, and maybe that's me myopically wanting affirmation. But like doing something just for yourself is great. But when you get stuck, it's thankless. And when you can't share the victory, it's thankless. And when there's no right, like it's hard. And this is like a real thing that everyone feels like,
And then when someone's like, "Oh, just show me your code," it's like, "No, actually, it's embarrassing. Just go away." Like,
there is nothing more rewarding than working with people and working on something that makes you excited, like legitimately makes you excited. So I know it sounds like a funny tangent. Like I quit all my paid work in like February this year to work on things that I thought were fun, completely unrelated to the pandemic. The pandemic was really poor timing. Really,
I was gonna say one thing that's really sad about like the whole development realm is like everything has to have bloody value.
No, fuck value.
But it's like value, why? Like why can't we just do things for fun?
Yeah.
Right. Amen.
Yeah, like we used to in the 90s and noughties, like we used to just have blogs with these like neon letters going. It was just pure fun. You were just typing something and then it was showing, and that was all needed.
But still do it.
You remember when you could like embed sound in your blog, like when you.
But legitimately, if I had any piece of advice for that, it's just like do the fun thing. Like I quit my job just to do. I don't even know. I have no idea. This is my midlife crisis. But just to do things that are fun, right? And I've worked every day since then. And actually, like if you're struggling to find something to learn, just building something, anything that you care about is like, maybe that's advice I'd give to me when I was young. Like, don't stop building things you care about, ever.
Yeah, I think the language is the tool, right? The language isn't the thing that you learn.
Exactly.
The language is the thing that you're using to learn something. So all the stuff I've done has been, I have wanted to make a thing. Like my first job was doing office admin, and it was boring. So I wrote an app to do my job, and then I surfed the web for half the day. And then I taught myself Android. I taught myself, so like, find a problem for a thing that you want to do, and then that will take 90% of the problem away. Like, oh, it's on a Raspberry Pi, it's probably going to be in Python. Oh, you're doing back-end stuff, it's going to be something completely different. You want to do it on iOS, it's going to be in Swift. Find the problem, the tools are the tools. They're not the goal. And anything you learn, the bits you learn, are the problem solving and the patterns and the tricks and the what is the Google phrase for how does this work. That's the bit you learn. The rest of it you can pick up and shift around. Like knowing whether a semicolon is there or a brace is there is not. It's not the brain work. It's not the bit that I would ever look for in.
Yeah, making stuff addictive. Right.
Yeah, and I think what I have learned, which is kind of invisible, and I didn't notice until I started actually self-reflecting on my learning, is reading documentation. I still can't do it, but I do it a lot faster. And like, even when I break things, I break them a lot faster.
Yeah, I read.
And sometimes stop myself before I do. Then I did understand. I can still do fuck all, like, yeah, honestly. I'm better at
read up until the point where I feel like I can do it, which is like, oh, that's enough. And then it's never, because I don't read it properly, it never works. And then I read a bit more, and then I get bored and try it anyway. So I can't.
Yeah. But then when you find a solution on Stack Overflow, and it's like, and none of what they propose is what you have had in your code, and it's like, I don't think I'm going to make it fit.
So
I really don't think this is going to work.
Just as impatient.
So yeah, it's good to hear from other people that they have the same problem.
It's so reassuring to hear that you guys are as impatient as I am when I'm trying to solve a problem. Because I just want to know the answer.
Yeah, I've known one developer in my life who read documentation, and he read, and this is a long way back, he read the entirety of like Unreal Engine, like API, before he did anything. I think he was an alien, because that is not how I've ever learned. Yeah, you change it, you press compile, and you see what breaks.
So
that's how I work.
There's an interesting cultural thing here. Like, I worked with an organization based out of Germany last year. What year are we in? Yeah, sure. We're just going to say last year. And yeah, we're just going to go with last year.
Yeah, let's not say the name of the year.
I ran off on a wild tangent. Debbie, I'm going to attempt to talk to you again and see if your microphone works.
It's probably.
Oh my God, I can hear you
now. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's not my story. Tell me about your story. Come on. I love it.
So I was a teacher for a long time. And what happens in schools is they don't have enough teachers, and I work in England, they don't have enough teachers in high school to teach kids computer science. So someone said to me, "Oh, you've got a degree in maths, you can teach computer science." This is 6 years ago.
That was going to
totally the same thing, right?
My old high school did that.
From age, I started off teaching age 11 to 16, and then I got into 16 to 18, which was really hard. And then I did some primary teaching, which is actually really easy. Once you've done the high school stuff, it's really easy. So somewhere along the way, I got interested in computer science as programming, coding. And I did a boot camp about 2 years ago, and I loved it. And then my plan was, when I finished boot camp, to get a job as a junior developer. But the problem is, when you leave your teaching job, you get recommendations, and then people ring you and say, "Can you teach my child privately?" So I'm doing loads of that now. I'm like freelancing in teaching. I don't teach in the high school anymore. I teach probably about 20, 25 hours a week online. Kids who haven't been in school and who need help with their maths and computer science. So I'm hoping at some point to break away from that and get a job as a junior developer. But I'm quite a lot older than you guys. So
I could totally imagine.
I'm quite a lot older, so it might be a bit more difficult for me. But I'm one of these people that I just love to do things that occupy me and keep me busy. I love learning new stuff. I don't mind when I get stuck. Well, actually, that's not true. Sometimes I go completely mad when I get stuck. Sometimes I just bang my head against the wall and want to throw the laptop out the window. And like you said before, I don't like asking questions because I don't like to appear stupid. But I think I've got over that now. Yeah,
the more you do it, the more you get over it. To be honest,
it
just becomes like slides off. If you haven't done it for a long while, it's difficult to then start asking again. So like with getting stuck, I don't mind getting stuck. Sometimes it's like, oh, okay, let me get you. But then eventually it's like when too much time has lapsed, it's like, am I lying to myself? Am I lying to myself? Am I lying to myself? And then how to get unstuck, especially if you had a break. Like I feel like I constantly need to be doing something, otherwise I forget everything. Because I've got no real life application to what I'm doing. You know, I'm not maintaining anything. I'm just kind of trying to learn things. So then if you don't have the curriculum, you don't know what you're doing. Like if I get stuck and then like say I had a really shitty day at work, I come back, I'm actually burnt out. I come back and I'm trying to learn something. I'm like, what am I doing here? So then what do you do to get unstuck in that situation? Like how do you even organize your time and like look after your health and everything? That would be the kind of advice that I would want to
I just go
be
for a
able
walk.
to give myself
I just go for a walk when
in
I
the
get
future.
stuck.
Well,
go shopping sometimes, spend some money, and come back, and all of a sudden, I've sorted it.
There's definitely two things here. One, I would say, like, I can hear your Yorkshire accent all of a sudden, which is wonderful. No, I love it. It's amazing. It's totally
I'm sorry.
So
is that not expected?
I'm celebrating that as a northerner, and
I love a good Yorkshire.
And Debbie, the thing you mentioned there about not wanting to ask questions. So I can't remember who said it. It's probably some principle that someone wrote down. But if you have all the answers, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah,
right?
I've
Everybody
heard that
should always be
before.
primed to ask questions. Like one of the most useful things that ever helped me through my career was always being totally happy to ask, to be the useful idiot. Like I would sit in the middle of a room and ask the dumb question about the word that someone used that I don't know, because if I don't know it, there's a good chance half of the rest of the room doesn't either, and there is no shame.
So true.
Have you come across like
everyone's thinking the same thing, and I feel like I've always been the one that I had to ask the question because nobody else would, but I could feel like the whole group is like completely confused. I was like, okay, I'll I volunteer as tribute. But at the same time, there's another quote that I use sometimes when I get like sort of mentally and emotionally stuck, and it's like, if you're not embarrassed about who you were a year ago, then you're not growing fast enough. Which is a little bit, it's got this little bit of a like Silicon Valley, like optimize, grow kind of feel to it. Maybe not a year ago, but if you're not embarrassed of like who you were in the past.
Yeah, there's
perhaps you're not
I'm not sure if
changing.
it's like a hard thing, but I've heard people say like there's like a 15-minute rule, which is if like you ask for help within 15 minutes, you're wasting the other person's time. And if you don't ask for help after 15 minutes, you're wasting your own time.
I've never heard that, but that's excellent.
I don't like the hard numbers on that, but I feel like there's
sure.
definitely a limit.
That's very good,
And I just
I like flexibility, but I do like a hard number sometimes.
That's
as well.
incredible. A, for teaching, because I can't even like 30 children. Good lord, you're incredible. And then just like shifting careers like that's amazing. So keep on it. That's extraordinary.
So can I ask Debbie, feel free to not answer this because it might be a bit of a personal question. What stops you from, you say you want to transition into being a junior dev. What do you feel is in your way?
Teaching. I teach. When you're a teacher, or when I'm a teacher, I'm not sure if all teachers feel like this, but I have a responsibility towards the kids that I teach, who are all going to be taking quite big exams. They're wanting to go to schools where they're quite competitive, so they have to take exams to pass. And I have a 100% success rate so far with the kids that I teach. So I suppose a bit of it's my ego, and a bit of it is I feel responsible for helping them along the way. So that's really what keeps me there. And I really enjoy teaching the kids as well. And I feel that most of them have got exams in 1 or 2 years. And I just feel that now I've taken them on and made a commitment to them, and I really ought to stay with them for that. But, it takes time. Some of them have 2 or 3 hours a week with me. online doing pretty tough maths actually. Some of the maths they have to study is quite tough for their age group. So that's what stops me. It just takes up so much of my time preparing. It's not just teaching them online. You have to prepare work and you have to get it at the right level, and then you have to assess and you have to feedback, and I have to deal with the parents as well. And that's it, really.
Have you considered, Debbie, that you're not a junior at all? You're actually like a development manager who's never had to deal with like adult children, i.e. developers. Like, honestly, you would be a godsend for like 90% of the companies I know of. Like, incredible skill set.
Thank you. Well, when I did my boot camp, I did have to deal with other, people who were doing, and also, and I think I managed to pass, even though at times I thought I was going to end up throwing the laptop out the window. But I learned an awful lot. I did HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Python, Django, Flask.
More qualified than I am.
Really?
Yes, it was
I managed to get another 10 projects built, mainly using Django. And I had to go React.
Things to put on the portfolio than I do.
So we are hitting. We're actually over time here, Debbie. You're furiously overqualified for a junior dev job. I really desperately hope.
I don't think so.
Please, just do the damn thing. Do the thing. We believe in you.
Thank you.
I obviously can't kick everybody out. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for all talking.
Thank you.
Brilliant. I think we have to go presumably back to the main session or something like that. Yeah, we'll work it out. Yes, thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you in the other one.
See you.
We'll see you there.
Bye.
Bye.